The hum of Jake's computer filled his small home office as he leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen. He was mid-sentence in a virtual meeting with his company's biggest client when... Silence. The screen froze. The crisp audio of his boss's voice distorted into a garbled mess before cutting out completely. A bright red "connection lost" notification blinked in the corner. His stomach twisted. Panic surged as he scrambled, clicking through Wi-Fi settings. Nothing. He unplugged the router, counted to 10, plugged it back in. Still nothing. His fingers drummed anxiously against his desk before he grabbed his phone and switched to mobile data, barely getting a signal. A flood of unread messages from his team filled the screen. "Jake? You still there? Hello? We lost him." Jake cursed under his breath and forced a professional tone as he typed out a hasty apology. "Technical difficulties. Back soon." He had 5 minutes, maybe 10, before the client lost patience and the deal collapsed. Then his email refreshed. "Your internet service has been temporarily revoked due to non-compliance with HOA regulations." He blinked. What? His jaw clenched as he read further. Per the revised community policies, private internet providers are no longer permitted. Residents must subscribe to the HOA-approved service. Failure to comply results in immediate disconnection. Jake pushed back from his desk, anger bubbling beneath his skin. He knew exactly who was behind this. Mrs. Carmichael. The self-appointed dictator of the Neighborhood Homeowners Association. She thrived on making everyone's life miserable with a plastic smile and a clipboard full of citations. She had tried forcing everyone onto an overpriced, slow HOA-controlled internet plan, and when Jake refused, she must have gone straight for the kill. He stormed out of his house, barely remembering to grab his keys. The HOA office was only a few blocks away, and by the time he reached it, his pulse was pounding in his ears. He threw the door open to find Mrs. Carmichael seated behind her oversized desk, sipping tea with an air of smug satisfaction. She looked up, feigning surprise. "Oh, Jake. What a lovely surprise. How can I help you?" He held up his phone. "My internet just got shut off." She didn't even blink. "Yes, I saw that. Terribly unfortunate. But, rules are rules." His grip tightened around his phone. "You cut me off in the middle of a meeting. I work from home. You have no right to do this." Mrs. Carmichael sighed, setting down her teacup. "Oh, Jake, let's not be dramatic. The HOA voted on this policy months ago. Everyone else signed up." "No, you bullied people into signing up," he shot back. "And when I refused, you pulled this stunt." She raised a perfectly plucked eyebrow. "Stunt? Oh no, Jake, I'm simply enforcing regulations. The same ones you agreed to when you moved in. If you didn't want to follow them, perhaps this wasn't the right community for you." Jake exhaled sharply, willing himself not to lose control. "I checked the HOA bylaws. Nowhere does it say you can force people to use a specific provider, let alone cut off access to those who don't comply." She smiled, the kind that made his blood boil. "Oh, you're so determined. But I had the board approve an emergency amendment last week. Entirely legal, I assure you." He felt his last shred of patience snap. "This isn't about regulations. This is personal." Her lips curved just enough to confirm it. "Oh, don't be silly. Turn it back on." She gave a mock frown. "I wish I could, dear, but my hands are tied. If I made exceptions for you, then where would we be? Anarchy?" She laughed lightly. "Besides, this is a community decision. If you want internet, you can subscribe to our service. I'd be happy to send over the paperwork." Jake's jaw locked. He had half a mind to grab that damn clipboard off her desk and snap it in half. Instead, he took a step back, forcing his breath to steady. "This isn't over." Her eyes gleamed. "Oh, I do love a good challenge." He turned on his heel and walked out, the heat of her condescension burning into his back. The moment he stepped outside, frustration boiled over into a single thought. If she wants a fight, she's going to get one. Jake sat in his darkened office, his fingers drumming restlessly against his desk. The glow of his phone screen was the only light in the room. He had spent the last hour cycling through every possible solution, from legal threats to calling his internet provider directly. Nothing. Mrs. Carmichael had locked him out completely, and unless he bowed to her demands, she had no intention of letting him back in. His anger simmered beneath the surface, no longer a sharp, immediate burn but something deeper. A slow, calculating rage. She had cut off his lifeline without a second thought, purely out of spite. But if there was one thing he knew, it was that people like Mrs. Carmichael always had weaknesses. He needed to find hers. Pulling up the HOA bylaws on his laptop using his dwindling mobile data, he pored over the rules she had so proudly waved in his face. At first glance, everything looked airtight, wordy clauses, vague legal jargon, all designed to keep power in the hands of the HOA. But after an hour of reading, something caught his eye. A section on utility regulations. Jake leaned forward. There, buried under the endless provisions about lawn decorations and fence heights, was a clear restriction. Any unauthorized modifications to communal utilities would be grounds for immediate termination of HOA leadership. His mind raced. Mrs. Carmichael controlled everything: security, surveillance, even which holiday decorations were permissible. That kind of control required power. More than the standard HOA office should have. If she had rerouted or tampered with electrical systems to keep her personal luxuries running, she was breaking the very rules she so viciously enforced. He needed proof. The next morning he walked the neighborhood, stopping to chat with residents who had suffered under Mrs. Carmichael's reign. They were easy to find. "Wait, she shut off your internet too?" an older man, Mr. Rodriguez, asked. "Figures. She's been looking for an excuse ever since you called her out at the last meeting. She fined me for having one too many plants on my porch," a woman named Lisa scoffed. "Meanwhile, she installed that ridiculous fountain in her yard. And guess who's paying for the water bill? She's got the entire HOA budget wrapped around her finger," grumbled another neighbor, Mark. "You ever notice how her house never loses power, even during outages? She's running something." That was the confirmation Jake needed. He tracked down the only person Mrs. Carmichael couldn't afford to intimidate, the local electrician, Ben, who had serviced most of the homes in the neighborhood. Over coffee, Jake laid out what he suspected. Ben rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "You might be onto something. I've seen weird spikes in power usage around her place. Thought about reporting it, but, HOA politics." Jake leaned in. "What if we didn't report it? What if we just documented everything?" Ben grinned. "Now that I can help with." That evening, armed with a thermal scanner and a set of infrared cameras Ben had borrowed from his shop, they conducted their investigation. Under the cover of darkness, they monitored the electrical outputs around Mrs. Carmichael's house. What they found was worse than Jake imagined. She wasn't just rerouting power, she had an entire unauthorized grid wired to bypass standard billing. The woman was siphoning thousands of dollars in electricity to run industrial-grade security systems, luxury heating, and even an underground generator. Jake recorded everything. Thermal scans, power fluctuations, even a grainy image of the covert electrical panel hidden in her backyard. It was enough to bury her. But he wasn't done. Before launching his final strike, he set the stage for her downfall. Over the next few days he fed anonymous tips to the community board, knowing their loyalty would waver the moment they saw her as a liability. He sent the evidence to the county inspector's office, ensuring that when the time came, it wouldn't just be angry neighbors knocking on her door. Then he waited. Because karma, when set up correctly, didn't just hit back, it took everything down with it. The morning air was crisp, the kind of deceptive calm that came before a storm. Jake stood by his window, sipping his coffee, his phone buzzing non-stop with messages from neighbors. Word was spreading. People were talking. And then it happened. A sleek county inspector's truck rolled up to Mrs. Carmichael's house, followed closely by a utility service van. Jake exhaled slowly, setting his mug down as he watched the show begin. From his vantage point, he saw the inspector, a sharp-eyed woman in a navy jacket, stride up the porch steps and pound on the door with the authority of someone who had seen it all. There was a pause. Then, the door cracked open just enough for Mrs. Carmichael's perfectly manicured hand to grip the frame. Jake couldn't hear the words, but he saw the moment her posture stiffened, the way she tilted her chin upward, a knee-jerk defense mechanism for people who had spent their lives above consequences. A clipboard was thrust forward. The inspector gestured to the side of the house. Mrs. Carmichael shook her head, her expression tight but controlled. She was still clinging to the illusion of power. Until the inspector stepped aside and waved forward the utility crew. Jake smirked. There it is, the unraveling. Mrs. Carmichael's voice finally carried across the lawn. "Excuse me. What do you think you're doing?" One of the electricians, a burly man in a county uniform, barely glanced at her as he responded, "Ma'am, we have reason to believe there's an unauthorized power reroute on your property. We'll need to inspect it immediately." I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. The inspector flipped a page on her clipboard. "Ma'am, under municipal code, any alteration to public utilities must be disclosed and approved. We have photographic evidence of an unregistered power grid linked directly to your property. Jake could see it now, the first crack in the foundation. Mrs. Carmichael's voice dropped into something sharper, more calculated. I demand to speak to your supervisor. The inspector, clearly unimpressed, tapped her badge. You're looking at her. Jake let out a quiet chuckle. This was better than he had hoped. The crew didn't wait for permission. They moved toward the backyard utility panel, tools in hand. That's when the panic set in. Mrs. Carmichael lunged forward, arms outstretched. You can't touch that. That's private property. Not according to county records, the inspector said coolly. This is connected to community power lines. Which means we're well within our rights to shut it down. No, no, and no. She was still speaking when the electrician pulled the lever. The effect was instantaneous. Her house went dark. The massive decorative fountain in her yard sputtered to a halt. The security cameras dotting her property blinked off. Inside, the faint hum of countless luxury appliances died in unison. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake could almost hear the moment it hit her, the realization that she wasn't untouchable, that she had lost control. Neighbors stepped out onto their porches, drawn by the commotion. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Phones recorded. People whispered. What's going on? Did they just cut her power? Holy crap, did she get caught? Mrs. Carmichael stood frozen in her yard, jaw clenched so tight Jake thought it might shatter. And then, in a final beautiful twist of irony, her Wi-Fi cut out. The smart system in her home, ***, the one she had lorded over everyone else ***, failed completely. Her front door locks jammed. Her security alarms malfunctioned. Jake allowed himself a small, satisfied exhale. Poetic justice. But the best part was yet to come. The inspector flipped another page on her clipboard. Ma'am, given the severity of this violation, you will be receiving a formal fine. Additionally, your position as HOA president is now under immediate review for misconduct. The crowd gasped. Mrs. Carmichael's face drained of color. You can't do that. The inspector gave a slow, measured nod. Actually, your own HOA bylaws say we can. Jake didn't bother suppressing his grin. Mrs. Carmichael had spent years wielding those same rules like a weapon. Now she was being bludgeoned by her own arrogance. She turned, eyes scanning the neighbors, searching for support. But instead of the usual fear, she found something worse. Indifference. No one came to her defense. No one rushed to protest the inspector's ruling. The neighborhood she had ruled over with an iron grip had moved on without her. Jake took one last look at the spectacle before heading back inside. His work here was done. Mrs. Carmichael stood in her darkened yard, her perfect posture now stiff with tension, her fingers twitching at her sides. The glow from a dozen phone screens illuminated her face as neighbors recorded, whispering among themselves. The power shift wasn't just electrical, it was social. She was alone, exposed in a way she had never been before. Jake watched from his porch, arms crossed. The night air carried the distant hum of crickets, but everything else felt still, like the moment before a storm broke. He had been waiting for this, for the inevitable moment when the weight of her own actions came crashing down on her. The county inspector didn't waste time. She tore off a bright orange violation notice and slapped it onto Mrs. Carmichael's front door. The paper crinkled loudly in the silence. You have 72 hours to attend a hearing with the HOA board. Failure to comply will result in an immediate leadership termination. Mrs. Carmichael's breath came in quick, sharp bursts. She had spent years cementing herself as the queen of this neighborhood, the ultimate enforcer of rules and punishments. But now, the same rules she had used to crush others were pulling her under. Her eyes darted to Jake. The realization hit her like a punch. This was him. He was the one who had set all of this in motion. She took a step forward. You, she hissed. Jake raised an eyebrow. Me? This is your doing. He shrugged. I didn't rewire my house to steal power. You did. Her jaw clenched. You don't understand how things work. This HOA needs structure. Provide that. Jake let out a small laugh. Structure? You mean control. And now that it's slipping, you don't know what to do. She scoffed, but the sound lacked her usual confidence. I built this community. You have no idea what it takes to run it. Jake took a slow step forward, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You built a prison, Carmichael. And now you're locked in it. Her nostrils flared, but before she could respond, a voice called out from the crowd. You're a fraud, Carmichael. Heads turned. It was Mark, one of the many homeowners she had fined into submission. He crossed his arms. All those years of lecturing us about community values, turns out you were stealing from us the whole time. Lisa, the woman she had fined over potted plants, stepped forward next. Where's all that arrogance now? She said. You made me pay for violations that didn't even exist. I hope they make you pay for what you've done. A ripple of agreement spread through the crowd. Murmurs became louder, angrier. She raised our dues while she lived for free. She shut off our utilities but kept her house fully powered. We should have voted her out years ago. Mrs. Carmichael took a step back, glancing around wildly, searching for even a single ally. But there were none left. Jake almost felt bad for her. Almost. The county inspector finished her notes and tucked her clipboard under one arm. Ma'am, I suggest you comply with the board's decision. Otherwise, we'll escalate this to legal action. That was it. The final nail. Mrs. Carmichael's shoulders sagged, her once flawless composure shattered. For the first time she had nothing to say. Jake exhaled, his job complete. The night air felt lighter, as if the whole neighborhood had been freed from something invisible yet suffocating. He turned to head inside, but then, one last thought, He pulled out his phone, opened the neighborhood forum, and typed a simple message. HOA leadership vote incoming. A wave of cheers erupted from the crowd. Mrs. Carmichael flinched at the sound. For the first time she understood what it felt like to be powerless.